I'd like to call the regular meeting of City Council for Monday, September 20th to order. And our first item on our agenda this morning is our delegations. And 2.1, we have Michelle Mobley from the Dawson Creek Literacy Now in attendance regarding a proclamation that we're honored to read this morning, recognizing September as Literacy Month in Dawson Creek. Welcome, Michelle. Thank you for coming this morning. And I'll read the proclamation and then I'll give you an opportunity to address council. Thank you. Whereas literacy promotes opportunities for Canadians to increase their chances of success in today's complex world, as literacy is no longer simply reading and writing. And whereas engaging children and youth in literacy programming ensures the best possible environment in which they can become lifelong learners. And whereas strong literacy skills are vital to our country's economic and social development, and whereas literacy offers all Canadians an opportunity to make substantial contributions to the growth, prosperity, and well-being of our community. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim the month of September 2021 as Literacy Month in Dawson Creek.
Can I give you a long distance high five?
Here you go, back. Thank you, Michelle. We'll get the proclamation for you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention Literacy Connects Us. That is the theme that we have gone with this year, is the connection that literacy can make. It connects us to health. We enjoy better health. Literacy skills help us find and understand and use health information properly. It connects us to our kids, having books, reading aloud, connects us to employment. Strong literacy skills are connected to having a job and earning a better income. Connects us to health and safety by keeping us safe at work. And connects us to civic engagement. Canadians with strong literacy skills are more likely to vote and volunteer. So, on that note, our big fundraiser for this year is Dakota Team Trivia Challenge. We did this last year. The Literacy Society and some of our clients have gotten together. We have a team. You can register anytime. It's tomorrow evening, so if you're free, grab your family, grab your friends. You enter just by donation, as little as $5, and come and have fun for an hour and a half and see if you can beat the Literacy Society at Trivia Challenge. And it's province-wide, so it's lots of fun. The other thing I just wanted to mention, if anybody here has kids or grandkids, we've got a coloring contest. It's dakota.ca, and there's all sorts of fabulous prizes, literacy-related prizes. I think they're Indigo gift cards and that type of thing. So, lots of fun things for literacy this month, but also remembering that in all seriousness, how important literacy is and how it does connect us. So, thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time.
Michelle, thank you so much for coming this morning. So obviously it's a pleasure to have you here and join us today, and all the amazing work that you guys at Dawson Creek Literacy Now do on behalf of our community and helping make our community a better place. So thank you for that. If you'd like to share some of that material, perhaps we can share it on our city social media outlets as well.
I'd be happy to leave this here.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Thank you, Michelle. We appreciate it. It was nice to see you, and have a great week. And good luck tomorrow night.
Thank you so much. I hope to see you guys there.
Thank you.
Take care.
Our next delegation, 2.2, we have Kathy Peters back at Dawson Creek Council today. It's good to see Kathy again. The BC Anti-Human Trafficking educator, speaker, and advocate in attendance with a request of council and doing a presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kathy. Good morning. Kathy, welcome. It's nice to see you again.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, for the opportunity to present again to Council. As you all know, I raise awareness about the growing crime of human sex trafficking, sexual exploitation, and specifically child sex trafficking. This is an undeterred crime primarily occurring online, targeting youth, children, and the vulnerable. COVID has seriously exacerbated the problem because youth have more screen time. When I presented previously on May 31st, I went over the definition of human trafficking and I supplied stats and solutions. There's a great deal that civic governments can do to address this crime because you know the makeup of your community and can report to your local MLA an MP about what is going on and what is needed in your community. Today, I have a specific ask to present to your MLA, MP, and stakeholders, and to have a resolution that could be sent to NCLGA as a follow-up to the NCLGA Resolution B53 for UBCM in September 2015. A more up-to-date resolution is important because more is known about the crime of human trafficking, particularly on the impact on and involvement of youth, children, and the vulnerable. At the last meeting I attended, council members wore the orange t-shirt to stand against the mistreatment of Indigenous children in the past. Today, because of an undeterred and organized sex industry, children, youth, and the vulnerable are being targeted, particularly Indigenous youth and children. We need to stop it. The most concerning stats, 13 years old is the average age of recruitment, much younger for Indigenous girls. In the Lower Mainland, the target age now has dropped down to 10 to 12-year-old girls. 54% are Indigenous. They are severely overrepresented in the sex industry, and it is a much higher percentage, up to 70 and 90% in urban centers. 84% of prostituted persons are pimped out or trafficked. So organized crime and international crime syndicates are involved. Crime follows the money, and human trafficking is a low-risk, high-income crime with traffickers making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year per victim. I previously explained the importance of enforcing Canada's federal law called the Protection of Communities and Exploited Persons Act. The law has three parts. Number one, it targets the demand by targeting the buyer of sex. A predator, trafficker, pimp, facilitator, John, buyer of sex are criminalized. Number two, recognizes a seller of sex as a victim, usually female, and is immune from prosecution. Number three, exit strategies are put in place to assist the victim out of the sex trade. This law focuses on the source of harm, the buyers of sex, and the profiteers. The clear statement from Parliament was that girls and women are not for sale. And I really like this giant RCMP poster, that they are full human beings with dignity and human rights. So we have an election today. It's very important to know the position of each party and your next member of Parliament on this issue. The sex industry would like this law repealed in order to normalize the sex industry, similar to the Netherlands, Germany, Nevada, Thailand, and New Zealand. New Zealand fully decriminalized prostitution in 2003, and they've now been dropped to a tier 2 country by the Trafficking Persons Report because of increased human trafficking and child sex trafficking inflows. Organized crime and international crime syndicates are all involved. New Zealand allows SUBs, or small owner-operated brothels, throughout the country, and these have no accountability or transparency, and they are currently filled with Indigenous, Maori, Asian women, and children. Vcase.ca out of Vancouver has research and videos on the impact and consequences of full decriminalization. Canada is known as a child sex tourism destination. And I mentioned the TIP report before, but also this book by Dr. Robert Christmas, Sex Industry Slavery, Protecting Canada's Youth. Contributing factors I've mentioned before are globalization, unregulated technology, limited law enforcement, and very little prevention education. Under the Public Safety Department, there is the Canadian Centre to End Trafficking with its new National Human Trafficking Hotline number with help and resources. Provincially, we have OCTIP and Victim Link with their helpline. OCTIP, or the Office to Combat Trafficking in Persons, has an excellent free online training about 7 hours in length. I recommend all City Council staffs and frontline service providers take this important course. Victim Link also has resources for help in BC. The sex industry is targeting our youth, children, and vulnerable. In every BC community, and schools have become the recruiting grounds for gangs and sex trafficking. A critical deterrent and the frontline defense are the school liaison officer programs in school. The officers prevent crime and protect the vulnerable. If school liaison officers are removed from schools, that is a green light for organized crime to move in. BC is getting further and further behind every province in Canada in both enforcing the federal law and raising awareness of prevention education. I very much appreciate the support letter the mayor wrote to both the Solicitor General and the Premier. While this is a start, what is the follow-up? So my ask is to present to your current MLA and your incoming new MP once elected, as well as to any stakeholders in your area, including Indigenous bands, school boards, police boards, hospital boards, health officials, educators. Other councils had me present to their policing committees and introduce me to their school board officials. For example, RCMP detachments have reached out for additional training. The new Surrey Police Board, for example, had me present to the issue in June, and Surrey is one of the fastest growing and largest communities in Canada. I will be presenting to my third Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls gathering in early October. Also, I suggest a resolution that can be forwarded to the NCLGA as a follow-up to their 2015 resolution on human sex trafficking. So I would call it Resolution Youth and Child Sex Trafficking in Canada. Whereas the sexual exploitation and trafficking of youth, children, and the vulnerable is increasing in Canada, as reported by Stats Canada, Federal Public Safety Ministry, the Canadian Centre to End Trafficking, and the Trafficking in Persons TIP Report 2020 US State Department. And whereas the trafficking profile in Canada disproportionately involves women and children from Indigenous communities, migrants and new immigrants, LGBTI persons, persons with disability, youth, children, and the vulnerable. Therefore, be it resolved that UBCM call on the RCMP, city police forces, and local governments to work collaboratively in order to implement the recommendations found in the Federal National Action Plan under the Federal Public Safety, that there be provincial awareness campaigns in place to augment the work of the National Centre to End Human Trafficking, and interagency task forces that are similar that exist to combat drugs and gang violence be put into place. For education, I should just mention, we now have the Joy Smith Foundation. They have a national education center starting up. There is the Children of the Street, which is excellent. They're under plea. They're in BC. Tiana Sharafi runs the Sexual Exploitation Education, SEE, and Brave Education is excellent out of Alberta, as well as the work that I do. Thank you very much. And do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Kathy, and I'll turn it to Council. Council, have any questions, comments? Councillor Parslow.
Thank you, Kathy. Charlie Parslow here, Councillor. I'd like to ask you a question about Stroll liaison officers. I'm a little confused about where the status is on that. You seem to indicate, I think you did indicate that they have a positive impact on trying to reduce the likelihood of victims being recruited in schools. But this is where I'm asking the question now. So what is the status of school liaison officers? I thought as an aftermath of the Black Lives Matter movement and the Indigenous children graves being found, that there was push from the various communities to have school liaisons removed from schools. Could you comment on that, please?
Thank you very much. That's an outstanding question. The school liaison officer program has been in schools and in BC for a long time. For example, in Vancouver, almost 50 years. In New Westminster, almost 50 years. Those are the two school boards that to this date have removed officers without due process, I might add. And parents overwhelmingly, and students from both of those school districts, did not want those officers removed. I did have the opportunity to present to Vancouver School Board, for example, and I was not even asked. I did not get any response from New Westminster whatsoever, although I had a school trustee reach out to me, and she was very troubled because she said the majority of students by far want school liaison officers in. So what you're talking about is the BIPOC community. And what the message out there is that the BIPOC community does not want school liaison officers in the schools. but when schools do that, they invite organized crime in. That is what happens. Now, I do work very closely with all police agencies and with the RCMP. Provincially, you probably know the new commissioner is Dwayne McDonald, and I have talked about this with him ongoing, and he is very, very, very disturbed that the school liaison officers would be removed. He knows the implications of that. As a follow-up, I did present to Richmond's school board and to Burnaby's school board, and I hope to present to more school boards in the fall. And I'm from North Vancouver, and I've already reached out to all the school boards in West Vancouver, North Vancouver. It's just to warn, you remove school liaison officers who are trained to recognize vulnerable individuals. They recognize gang recruitment and can actually do something about it. Once you remove them, again, gang recruitment is already increasing in our schools, and it just takes off. So there's a whole side, sort of media did not cover the downside. I was interviewed by Mike Smith on CKNW to explain that child sex trafficking is really dramatically on the rise, and we have a gang problem now in our urban centers. So he was very disturbed, but generally the media has been quite supportive of a pro-sex industry, but nobody is talking about the consequences and impact of that. That is why I'm tirelessly doing the work that I'm doing. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you. But can I ask a supplementary question? Well, one is, first of all, did you use the expression BIPOC or something? What is that? I've never heard that term before.
Oh, well, that's a term used down here in the Lower Mainline. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, Persons of Color. BIPOC. Okay,
the question is, what caused school districts to make those decisions? Was it special interest groups? Which groups stood out for you in that work?
I would think that's reasonable to say, definitely special interest groups. And they, like Vancouver School Board and New West School Board, both brought in the similar groups from Toronto who are like anti-police groups. I was amazed that they would bring in groups from Toronto, and yet New West, for example, wouldn't let me present, and I'm local, and I work closely with well, I'm an educator. I mean, I've been educating on this issue for 40 years. So that seemed very, yes, they were definitely special interest groups. There was no due process. And the school board, it's just very troubling.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy. So we will bring your request back under Mayor's business later in our agenda. We appreciate again your attending this morning and presenting on this very important topic. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Have a nice day. Our next delegation, 2.3, we have Connie Patterson, Murray Pratt, Don Murphy, and Carl Gitschef from the Dawson Creek Exhibition Association in attendance, and they're here to present to Council this morning their Dawson Creek Exhibition Association annual report. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, you guys. Welcome, Connie and Terry and Murray and Carl from the Dawson Creek Exhibition Association and the I'm going to assume the Canadian Professional Rodeo Association. Yeah. Terry, welcome. And it's good to have you guys here this morning and give Council an update on the annual report. So welcome.
Thank you. So I believe you should all have the copy that we sent you, which was the update, and we also have what we've been doing over the last couple years, and then what the fair was like. So, I guess for me, I'll be speaking first, and then Terry's gonna talk afterwards. So, one of the problems that we're having right at the moment, everything has been working well, except for the rebuilding, and the rebuilding has been a disaster for us all. So we have come with a plan that we would like to have you look at. And our plan is just basically that the permitting is way beyond us. It's way beyond anybody that we have in our group. We're good at putting on rodeos and chuck wagons and fairs, but as far as understanding the permitting and everything that goes along with it, it's a bit much. So we would like to entertain the idea of the city, being that we donate all the buildings to you, they become yours once, because you own the property, that you would look after the permitting for those buildings that we need to replace. Right now, we're working on one that we started last October with Gudon, and that was, we still don't have that one ready to go yet. We're still waiting on some other permit that we need to do. I forget what that last one is, but they have our $70,000 that we had to put down on that. So it's gonna be a whole year. And it's just, like I said, it's too much. We can't figure that all out. So we'd like you to help us with that. Other than that, we're a little bit disappointed in our 4-H building, because the 4-H building that had to come down was, we definitely do have to replace that 4-H building. And once it started to come down and we had a look at, what we thought, we had the engineers from Great Western Steel that came and actually re-looked at that for us. And they disagreed with it having to come down. So it did come down. So that's the next one that we have to replace for sure. We're trying to get the replacement that adds to the cow barn, which is another 112 feet, so that we can actually rent it out, because we no longer have the auction market anymore. So now we need to have something that we can actually rent out 12 months a year. So that's the one that we need to help with the permitting on. And that's pretty much it, other than after Terry speaks, if there's anything that anybody wants to ask us to do with what we've been doing down there that says on that paper, you're more than welcome to do so. So, Terry.
Hi, everybody. I just would like to, I'm no longer directly involved with the Dawson Creek Rodeo since I've been president of the CPRA, but I must say that I'm biased. It is my hometown. The CPRA, we sanction 65 events throughout Canada in a year, and professional rodeo in Canada was growing leaps and bounds until this wreck hit 2 years ago. And it's done the same thing to us as it's done to everybody else. We never had any events last year. This year we managed to get 30 again, and Dawson Creek stepped up to the plate and put theirs on. And all the events, like we had an event in Montreal and one in Cloverdale, BC, so we're clean across Canada. Once the Calgary Stampede went, the Alberta government didn't have much choice but to let the rest of them go, because they allowed that to happen. But anyway, they're in a mess over there again right now. But I just would like everybody here to know the importance of what the Dawson Creek Rodeo does for our association. We have 1,300 members, contestants, committees, announcers, clowns, everything. We have 1,300 members in Canada. Last year with COVID, we never had one event, and it cost $500 to be a member of our association, and 850 of those people stood up and paid their membership to keep us going, which was pretty dang nice. We own our own building in Airdrie, where we have our office and everything there, and it's all, we own that. But we have these events, or we have what we call the Wrangler Rodeo Tour. And the top 11 rodeos in Canada get to be on that tour, and Dawson Creek is one of them, and we're happy to have them. It's huge for us, it's huge for our members, and obviously it's huge for this part of the country. It's great, like, I was in Sundre the week before the Dawson Creek Rodeo, and they had a great rodeo down there, but then you come up here and it's just another step up, and it's done a lot. I know through my lifetime, I can remember when I was 10 years old, we'd work all summer to go to the fair, and I can see how it's evolved into what it is now. And we have to keep this thing going. It's amazing what happened. It's the best thing north of Edmonton. And I just can't stress enough how our association feels about it. And I go to the US and do quite a few rodeos down there during the winter, and the Canadian contestants are down there throughout the winter, and they all want to know what's happening in Dawson Creek. It's important to them, it's important to everybody. And if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them if I can, but.
Thank you, guys. So, council, anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Gold.
Sure. Thank you guys for your presentation and all the notes. I obviously, appreciate what you guys do and bring to the community, and it's always been a, a big thing. And I know it's a well done event. I think Connie, you touched on like where the city can help, but to me, it's there's a lot of organizations that do a lot in this community, and I think as a city, we need to work with everybody and do our best for every group. So, I think Connie, you touched on areas that the city can help, but is there other areas that you're thinking, or is it just more with like permitting and helping the organization, or is it?
The main thing that we need, because to begin with, we have no light horse division because we had 7 barns. They took 7 barns out. So what the hell happens to the light horse division? We ran 1,000 head of horses there. So we're down to about 130 head of horses coming now. So that whole division has been wiped out with just the stroke of a pen. So we need barns, we need a lot of things, but we also are able to get a lot of grants. We're able to do that. So right now we have to replace the 4-H building, and we have to have that done before next year. And because we can't, where are we going to put our 4-H people? How in the world are we going to do that without 4-H? We're a Canadian sanctioned 4-H show, not just a British Columbia. We're Canadian sanctioned. So, and we need to finish the riding arena. So, like I said, by the time that we've helped to put those 2 buildings together, we pretty much spent every dime that we have left, including our grant money, to try to do that. So that's the big thing for us right now, is because we have 100th coming up next year, 100th anniversary. And we need to know if we're going to be running or not. And we need to know within this next 10 days. It's either a yes or else we're not. We're gone. There's no point in us fooling ourselves. We're not going to be able to make it without somebody else taking over the permitting for us.
And is it a matter of like, just living here my whole life and being involved, there always seems to be like a disconnect from the organization to the city. And I don't know, I could be just reading into that, but like on my part, it's about like we're both here to do what's right for our city. So how do we like gap that communication so that it's not so difficult? And maybe it's not, maybe I'm just reading into it, but it seems like, there's always been like a disconnect between, the city and, and the exhibition society. So
Anybody else want to say something about that? Carl?
So, Darcy, one of the biggest hurdles that we face is we don't mind paying for the building, right? But we fall under what's called a complex building permit. And under that, we have to get so many more things that cost so much money that it takes away any money that we have to actually do the building. And when we say we're asking for help with the permitting, that's what we're asking, either a redesignation so we simply come in and just get a building permit, not a complex building permit. Because as Murray can explain to you, the detail of material that we have to provide in order to fulfill that complex building permit and the cost associated, that's the real problem. So as partners, and we are partners, I mean, this is a joint venture, right? We're asking that you look after the permitting and we'll look after the building. And, we fully understand that things have to be built to code and built for safety and built for the long term and all those other factors. We don't have a problem with that. It's the cost of getting to that level of today's world as opposed to, when we started and you simply built something and that was that, right? So, you've been in business, you fully understand that.
yeah.
So that this complex building permit, that's really a game changer for us.
Okay. What? Just one other thing. When you guys said that you build the buildings and then they're given back to the city, who maintains them? Do you guys do the maintenance on them as well?
Yes.
So the cost to the city there's not much after the building goes up. Okay. Thank you. Thank you guys. And lady. Sorry, Connie.
Councilor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you all to echo the sentiment of my fellow councillors and His Worship. You guys put on a great event this year under some very challenging circumstances, and we do appreciate it. And certainly, I think we're all, as you said, stakeholders in the success of your event, and nobody's interested in having anybody jammed up needlessly. With respect to logistical support for capital, I mean, I can appreciate that's frustrating. I know on our end, usually the planning piece of any project for capital comes in at least 10%. So I can appreciate it's not a cheap endeavor, and it's certainly to see funds directed towards that instead of actual bricks and mortar is frustrating at times. So I do agree with Councillor Dober. It's certainly we'll do everything we can to support you. We need to make sure we're communicating effectively, and we need to, I think, make sure we're especially where capital projects are concerned, it's a year-round communication, because I think sometimes where we get in trouble is touching base a few weeks before the event is scheduled to happen, and bureaucracy being what it is, people get their wires crossed. So I think maintaining open lines of communication will be important. And I'm interested in hearing more about the option for redesignation. If there is a way to do that in a manner that doesn't compromise the safety of the buildings being built, I think that's a great thing to explore, but I'd defer to staff on what the options around that are. But thank you guys very much and for your time and for the event you put on.
Thank you. I've been going through my binder here concerning grants. What grants has you applied for in the last few years? Can you refresh my memory? I can't find anything in my binder.
What grants we applied for?
Yeah. What grants has your organization applied for in the last few years?
Mostly anything that comes up through BC Fairs and Canadian Fairs, we apply for those that come out through them. And we've also had the what do you call the Peace River region? No, the regional district. We also got out of the regional district, and we've had a lot of money come out of regional district over the years. They were the ones who helped us redo barns 1 and 2. That we redid those 2 barns. We redid them, and they got taken down. They were part of the 7 that came down. We also redid the same thing through the regional district. We redid our chicken barn through them, and we redid the 4-H. We put the whole new floors in the 4-H built that got taken down. And let's see, the other thing is the Cattle Industry Development Council. We've applied through grants through them for our cattle division. And I'm trying to think what that's called. For the life of me, I can't think of the name of it. It's out of Prince George, and it's we get the $5,000.
Oh, the NDIT,
yes,
especially,
yes.
Yeah.
But we've also applied through them. That was how we built the auction market. We got a $506,000 grant through them. That's helped us to put that auction market together. Mm-hmm. We paid 0 interest. We only made payments on that and paid 0 interest. And we also have had, actually the mayor helped us to get a grant through Shell that helped us put our new soundstage together. So we do a lot of grants.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to, Councillor Jverkov.
So complex building permits. I haven't done a lot with building permits, but you build according to the code, the building code. Some permits are simple, and some require engineered designs. So is there more to it than that, or is that how you guys see the permitting process?
Murray, will you talk on that?
Well, how it works, Paul, is in 2018, the BC building code had changed. The complex permit covers building over so many square feet. that incorporates our horse barn or our riding arena is what we're looking at. At the end of the day, I think our budget for the expansion project was right around $300,000 or $350,000. However, to acquire the complex permit, the engineering that needs to happen is the mechanical, the electrical, the geo. It's about $70,000 worth of engineering to build a $300,000 barn. That's where we're having the problem. Not only with that part of it, but to keep the thing rolling in an urgent timeline is what we're looking at. Like she says, we've been well over a year working on this building, and we're hoping to have it up for next August, but we could be still looking at it in June and trying to get this whole thing together. That's the long.
And that's an addition, Mary, that's an addition to the existing building that's already there, and the city actually took that 1/3 of it down because it did years ago.
Down, so we're gonna add that piece back on. That's what we're hoping to do.
So we can have a full size so that we can actually rent it out or we can actually use it. It needs to be a full size of like a hockey arena.
So, the $70,000, that's what you're after.
That and the process of getting it all completed, I mean, it's quite a thing for a volunteer board to try and put together without hiring a management agency to lay it all up for us.
Thank you. Councillor Dober.
Thank you, Worship. Just one question, Murray, about that. Do you know like what other communities in BC have done, like with the exhibitions and rodeos that they have? Like, is it
Exactly
something?
what they're doing? They're in the same spot we are.
And have they found like is there?
Nothing yet. And in fact, it's like Terry says, across Canada.
Oh, so the building code's
whole
Canada.
country, well, no different than the cities themselves with the infrastructure aging and the buildings are timed out. And now that, we're all on limited budgets and that it's gonna be quite a problem moving forward. We'll end up with a bunch of old barbed wire fence and tents, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What it's done clean across the country is it's caused everything to go backwards instead of forwards. It's a big problem.
So basically what you're saying is that the fairgrounds, as we know them, the fairgrounds, are owned by the city, not by the associations anymore. They've sold them to the city, as we sold ours to the city for $1. I forget how many years ago. It must be 30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago that we did that. So when you people came up and it was time when the building codes changed that you came and looked at our buildings, one of the biggest problems that most fairs have is we're only summer fairs. We only need summer buildings. So when you come into the inside of that building, it's not finished on the inside. The outside looks finished, but the inside, because all it does is stores things, stores all your paraphernalia. Like we have tons and tons of stuff that has to be stored all winter. All those buildings hold things that you bring out for the 10 days of the fair. And so that's one of the big problems, is all those buildings that were tore down, like those barns, they were not finished on the inside. They were summer barns. That's what they're called, summer barns.
Thank you. Councillor Parsel.
Yeah, I have two more questions. One relates to insurance. Many organizations are really being hit hard with insurance premium increases. What's the experience of the Exhibition Association concerning insurance premiums?
It's brutal. We pay a large amount of insurance.
Can you give me an idea about
As
how
you
much
can.
it might have gone up, Connie?
Well, it goes up every year. So it's gone up every year for the last 10 years, to be exact. So you can imagine if you have a bull rider riding there, what could happen. So what's happened then, Terry's group has taken on the insuring of their 7 events, their cowboys. They insure them.
Our insurance is $80,000 a year. Basically what it costs us, plus every town has to get their insurance. I mean, every committee is. Insurance companies are.
So we spend over $22,000 on insurance. But World Professional Chuck Wagons comes with their own insurance,
Yeah.
as does Canadian Professional
Yeah.
Rodeo. If we
Yeah.
had to pay for those, we'd be out of business.
The only insurance we require each individual town to come up with to cover us is a liability, just to name us under their liability. Yeah, but as far as
And that's the $22,000 that we spent.
it's not cheap.
So last question for me. This is the third year of the contract.
Coming up.
How's the contract going from the point of view of the exhibition association?
Well, we had 1 year with no fair, so we still, even with no fair, you still have to mow the lawns, you still have to water things, you still have to do your upkeep, but that doesn't stop, so we only took $75,000 is what you offered us instead of the 125, and we took it because we needed to have that money, but we still managed to get our grants through the student, the federal grants through the student. I've had the federal grants now for 20 years. And we had 3 summer students that came in that we qualified underneath, and that, so that it helped do all the lawn mowing, but we did a lot of things that we had been waiting to do, which was the grandstand. We had to take that on, so we had to have it sandblasted underneath, and then we had to use that lead paint. So we ended up trying to get the lead paint all across Canada. We finally ended up, we had 1/3 that didn't get finished because we couldn't get the paint. So that happened this spring. So we did a lot of upkeep, lots of upkeep.
Mm-hmm. You don't have any other issues with the contract?
No,
Okay.
it's fine, it's okay, it's what it is.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out exactly how that water worked, cause we never ever had to pay for the water, so we didn't know what the water was like, which we use gallons and gallons of water. Those big tanks are full so that we can spray the track, and we just never ever thought about having to be water conscious. But so we're definitely water conscious now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that every one of those where the chuck wagons stay, there's 36 spigots there, and those spigots have been there for 25 years, and it's time to remodel that. I don't know what that's going to cost, but that's going to be a huge one coming up after the 100th, if we manage to do the 100th.
Thank you.
Councillor Jericho?
So how many buildings is there that you need that complex permit?
The 4-H building and the horse barns. We have no horse barns. We have 1 draft horse barn. That's all we have. But the light horse, they camp out.
So they're all those buildings are over the required square footage?
No, we're going to make sure that we're going to keep within that.
And redesign and keep it under the footprint.
How much square footage is it?
I think it's 6,000 square feet. Anything over that is required. And with that too, I mean, under the building code, the 6,000 or over occupancy load, you have to design it, or architect design. So you have so many washrooms and on and on. Well, this is not an event center, it's a horse barn. So I mean, we don't need 10 washrooms for a handful of show cattle. That's some of the issues we have. I mean, and the problem we run into with that is that we're adding that piece back onto a building, so it incorporates the whole size.
But so that's the main building is
That is the main building. The rest of them, we're looking at changing design or size so that we can get out of that complex.
so, and there must be some interpretation. I mean, if you've got a horse barn, who's going to say that it's for occupancy? Like,
Not according to the code. So
It's on the square footage.
it's on the square
Square footage that you have.
basically. There is we can reduce the occupancy load down to 200 so that we can make washrooms fit and the mechanical rooms and all that fit in the space we have. But if we were to build it to code, it would be, well, you just wouldn't do it. Not too sure.
so have you got your 649 tickets?
Not yet.
I think one of the biggest problems with society is our rule books get thicker and our common
Yeah.
sense portion gets thinner. It causes a lot of problems.
So this horse barn that we need to build for the light horses, our hopes is that, we're gonna end up with 32 stalls is what what the drawing is for the first one. Well, that just doesn't even cut. We had 7 of those barns, 7 of them, and but we don't put bathrooms in them. The bathrooms, we have a common bathroom that they all go to.
Those
And
are
that-
just the horse barns for the light shows,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
not the arena.
So are they,
And they're not winterized, they're just summer barns is all they are. So they look good on the outside, but on the inside you see the 2x4s.
Yeah.
You know, and then they have the wood stall, actually they're gonna be sand bottoms, because for anybody that chose horse knows that if you standing that horse on cement, the first thing that happens is the hocks start to swell up, so you're wrapping them. So we're going to just have the alley in cement going down, but then the actual stalls will be in sand, so those horses always, which is a benefit to those people that are coming to show.
Thank you. So I just want to first thank you guys for coming this morning and giving a presentation to council in terms of your update and those areas of concern and need. Certainly I want to absolutely validate, I think, the comments that we absolutely value the exhibition association, the fair, the rodeo, the cattle, the horse, light horse, the on and on. It's an important event for our community, and I think to us we've certainly demonstrated that, I hope, by getting the lease in place a number of years ago that gave you guys the opportunity to have access to that facility that year round rather than the 2 months that existed prior and the wreck that would always end up you guys in that race to try to get the show underway. And certainly it's all about, for us, understanding and the communication in terms of what are some of the issues that you face and how we deal with that. On your presentation, I just want to clarify one, because you mentioned it, Connie, about the regional district being so supportive. And the city of Dawson Creek has in the past applied to the Peaceful Regional District for the Exhibition Association. In 2020, the exhibition missed out because the city did not notify they would not be applying for it. So that was an economic development function, the process that existed in the past at the regional district. I initiated that request on behalf of the Exhibition Association as a director on the board. I requested that 50 grand to be able to help the Exhibition Association. Half of that money, half of that 50 come from the residents of Dawson Creek. There were only 4 participating areas in that grant. Dawson Creek Area D, Area E put in 5 grand and Poos put in $1,100. The majority of the money did come from the residents of Dawson Creek, both times. And the reason that we didn't apply for it in 2020 is they changed the function. It didn't exist any longer. And so it wasn't a process that we could apply for any longer. They've changed the economic development function out there. So, you know, I think to me that's a little bit of the how the misunderstanding occurs in terms of what we're trying to do on your behalf, and it was a misunderstanding. Obviously, that we didn't apply for it, not because we didn't notify you guys that we weren't applying for it. It didn't exist any longer. But half of the money that came from that regional district grant over the years come from the residents and businesses of Dawson Creek in that requisition. So I think to me that's just a small example of what we've tried to do, both at the city as well as at the regional district, to support the Exhibition Association and demonstrate how important it is. So we appreciate you guys coming today and giving us an update, and we will bring it back under Mayor's business with your request and look at how we can help with the issue that you guys are facing with the additional costs of building these buildings. So thank you for coming this morning.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys.
So item 3, we have one late item, 3.1. We have a memo from the CAO proposing a motion. So first I need a motion that we can deal with the late item. Councillor Parslow, Councillor Kemp. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. So we have 3.1, the memo regarding sub-regional requisition. Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to move the motion that's been presented. Do you want me to read it?
I think we probably should.
Okay.
Yeah.
That the memo dated September the 20th, 2021, from the Chief Administrative Officer, proposed motion, South Peace Sub-Regional Recreation and Cultural Services Conversion Bylaw number 2453/2021 be received. Further, that pursuant to Section 346 of the Local Government Act, the City of Dawson Creek Council consents to the adoption of Peace River Regional District Bylaw, South Peace Sub-Regional Recreation and Cultural Services Conversion Bylaw, number 2453/2021, as amended at third reading on September the 17th, 2021. By removing the section which specified the specific facilities eligible for funding and inserting a more generic reference to recreational, library, and cultural facilities in its place, and by deleting the specific reference to operational capital contributions and inserting only the word costs in their place, to provide maximum flexibility in the application and use of the funds by the City of Dawson Creek, and by removing the section creating a committee to oversee the service function.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Kemp, discussion? Councillor Parslow, go ahead.
Well, I made the motion. I did have benefit of the conversation with the CAO on this. So as explained to me by the CAO, there was some feedback from the ministry, and the accommodations in here, I assume, clears everything up from the ministry, but also gives city far more flexibility in use of the funding.
Thank you. Blair?
Your Worship, just for clarity, really, yes. What we've been doing, the regional district has been working with the ministry on this bylaw. We had passed the motion earlier. We thought it had all been finalized for the presentation. It was put forward to the ministry. They then communicated with the regional district, say, look, we think it should be fine-tuned, as you will have seen the changes as presented here. Really, I would consider it a housekeeping issue as to what should be in the actual sub-regional recreation, the conversion bylaw, versus a letter of understanding as to how some of the things and how we execute on this bylaw. So very much the same. The dollars do not change. The contribution factors do not change. As they've stated in the response we've had from the ministry, maintain the flexibility through a letter of understanding or a memorandum of understanding, but keep the conversion bylaw the way it is, and they've worked together. So the changes were made and will be submitted, and that's why we're dealing with this here today. So no change in the intent of the bylaw or the understanding or the dollars, just really in the execution of the bylaw versus a letter of understanding, which will come as well.
Thank you. The RD had a special meeting on Friday, and we passed the first readings of the proposed amendment. I think Puskupi is one of the other contributing municipalities and partners in the agreement are meeting on Wednesday with it, and then we'll have a special meeting on the Monday the 27th at the RD to give it the fourth and final reading in order to move it forward. We just needed to have the participating communities give their final resolution as well. Any further comments for council? You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Item 4, new councillor business. 4.1, Councillor Parslow. Update on the proposed regional funding and governance for the airport.
Yeah, I was asked by a very engaged community member about this, and it prompted me to ask this question, ask for an update on timelines. So I would like to invite the Chief Administrative Office to, if he could, update us.
All right.
Thank you. Blair?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Council. So the Mayor and I called a meeting of Area D, Area E, and the Village of Puskupi to come together to begin the discussions about our airport. Should we be looking at a model similar to possibly what they do in the North Piece with the North Piece Airport Society? It really is a regional airport per se, whether we're talking commercial, charters, medevacs, a highly important part of what our airport is there for. Unfortunately, we had the meeting. Only one participant was able to attend. We began those discussions. We are following up with the next meeting. There was interest. This interest came during a discussion on the sub-regional recreation bylaw when we all met out at the regional district. There was a feeling by the participants that I just mentioned, particularly that they would like to sit down, learn about the airport, see how, if there was a possibility to work together. not only for the benefit of the airport, obviously funding is an issue. Right now, the city of Dawson Creek funds the entirety of the airport, although it's a regional function in its delivery. So we are continuing to do that. We are in the process now of engaging again with the 4 participants to start. I do think it's important once we have an initial discussion that both Chetwynd and Tumbler Ridge are brought into this as well. They both have airports themselves, different dynamics as far as their airports go. But again, I would look to the medevac portion. Most medevac flights in the South Piece will come out of the Dawson Creek Airport just because of the size, the runway, the maintenance, the schedules. On occasion, both Chetwynd and Tumbler Ridge do utilize medevac, but I believe it's my understanding through discussions and information we've received is most people that are in need of that are brought to this hospital for stabilization, as I understand it. I'm no medical expert, and then a medevac would occur out of this. So I think there's huge potential. There seems to be a willingness by the participants to engage in the discussion to say, look, how do we ensure we keep this airport operational and functional? It is vitally important to all of us, and I'm confident that we will get there, but that's where we're at. It was unfortunate that a couple of our participants couldn't attend the last meeting. We're in the process of re-engaging as I speak.
Thank you. So, any comments on timelines you might have in mind?
I would like to think that we would be meeting no later than October with the group to move forward. I have done some work. I'm very hesitant to bring people together and say, here's what we want to do. The intent of this discussion is to say, collaboratively, what can we do together and get everybody's ideas? There may be ideas out there we haven't thought of or others. So, you know, it is a strategic priority that our council has set, is to look at our airport and see how we can move it ahead together. So I'm hopeful that there would be something by year's end. Whether it's formalized and in place, that I couldn't determine, but certainly I think there will be the ability to report back to yourselves. Is there buy-in from the other participants? What would that buy-in look like? And we'll try and present something as quickly as we can.
Thank you. Any questions? Anything further from council on that? 4.2, Councillor Parslow presented the Northern Development Initiative Trust Internship Program.
As mentioned in the memo, I attended the quarterly meeting held in Fort St. John, September the 10th. And just as a side trip, there was only one item for a grant award because the amount of funds allocated to the Northeast for grant awards had been almost fully depleted in the first 3 intakes, which is good. Often there's been a lot of money left over, but so Fort St. John received $200,000 towards its 100th Street project. So we reviewed a number of things, and one of them was the internship program. And I made a couple of comments, and literally I think I was shot out of the house by everyone. I guess we're the only municipality, I can't comment about Pouce Coupe because they weren't in attendance, in our region who doesn't take benefit of this internship. And I asked the mayors and council representatives how they use the money. And the key element that I took out from it is that basically these interns are all degreed individuals who've done various degrees in different disciplines that are strongly aligned with the work the broad work the municipal governments engage in. So you're not really starting off at scratch. These people have a lot of knowledge, and I believe each municipal government goes out and recruits from this pool and aligns with particular projects you may have in hand. In the package that was there material attached to this, or was it just the memo? I'm sorry, my mistake. There's an attachment.
material you
Yeah.
added, we included in this
Yeah.
report.
Yeah, so you'll see some of the testimonials there, and in the qualifications, at least three samples, and so the contribution from the city would be to commit $10,000 towards it. You would get a grant of $45,000 to support the wages of the intern. 30,000 towards actually go to the wages, 5,000 towards their professional development, 10,000 for housing. The additional is a supplement to the interns' wages. So I believe that based upon what I've heard, that the city admin staff could well use the expertise of an appropriate individual. And I would like to move that the City of Dawson Creek apply for the NDIT Local Government Internship Program before January the 7th, 2022.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Dober, discussion? Any further questions? Council? Blair?
Your worship, and thank you, Councillor Parslow. So if we are to apply for this, and this is not something the city was unaware of, I think we have had a number of changes upstairs within our administration over the last year, particularly, so taking on an intern where we could actually deliver the training that they may need as well was difficult. This position, though, can be used anywhere, as I understand it, whether it be the planning department,
That's right.
which could be helpful. I think to me, it seems like a very worthwhile program, but I would ask council in this direction on this motion. Right now, we don't budget for this. So we're being asked to put $10,000 forward. And I'm going to, and it's dangerous to use the word assume, but assume this is for the 2022 year, of which I would say, should this motion pass, we will ensure this is brought up under your budget deliberations as we move into that for the 2022 budget, which I believe our first meeting is coming up in early October on that. We're going to talk about the budget assumptions report today, but just to make sure, we have had questions in the past, why did we not get this grant or that grant? And I've said this before, if we chase a grant and are successful in getting the grant and we don't have our portion budgeted for, we could look very foolish as a community. So I have some ideas moving forward with our budget discussions. We may want to look at a reserve, for example, that we put aside so that when we go after grants, we have our portion already allocated. That way it would allow the flexibility for mayor and council to pursue a number of grants, knowing that our portion is there.
So I would assume, and wrongly sometimes assuming, but I'm assuming that with this motion and it gets passed, if it gets approved, the council are saying we are going to budget then the $10,000 in under our admin to be able to attract this funding for this position, and then administration would just come back and say, look, it's going to be, perhaps we have more need in engineering, or we have more need in economic development, or we have more need in admin or someplace, or finance, and then that would move it forward for you guys in the planning. But we would be moving forward with that assumption that we're going to budget that 10 grand for it if council approve it.
Certainly, your worship, and it may not be under the admin budget as
Whatever,
you indicated, but it would
just
come,
as an
but
example.
we can deal with that for sure.
Councillor Parnell.
Yeah. Just to add to what you said there, my understanding listening to other elected officials is that they go and interview, and I'm assuming if there's somebody that's not aligned with something that we want to happen, you don't engage in it. You're in control, right? Yeah.
And also, I think NDIT has a stable of some of these young interns and people that are working and are there and are available in different sectors. I know the RD had a young lady out there for a period of time engaged in exactly that process, and I forget what the sector she was working in.
Can I add?
Yep.
Again, adding to what you said there, it was remarkable how many of these interns are hired by the host, and others go to other local governments as well. So it's a high percentage. Yeah.
Thank you. Further comments, council? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. And we have 4.3, we have Councillor Wilbur's put in a request to attend the Northern BC Solid Waste Management Forum. It's a forum put on through the NCLGA on the solid waste management for 2 days. For a councillor to attend any of those events or conferences that they would like to attend that are outside by policy, NCLGA, UBCM, PRLA, and those others requires a motion of council to approve. And in this case, we would be approving Councillor Wilbur's expense of $100 plus a cost to attend the conference. So I think we need a motion. Councillor Parslow?
In light of Councillor Wilbur's extensive experience with waste cans and stuff, I would like to move that we approve this request.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Kemp. Any discussion? Councillor Dober?
Thank you, Worship. Just out of curiosity, is there a reason why a city councillor would attend this, not like a staff employee that deals with this more? Because, you know, just thinking, you know, there's an election next year, if that changes, like, is there gonna be valuable information that's gonna be learned there that would be more beneficial for, you know, one of our staff members that deal with this on a daily basis?
Yeah, so the solid waste is really a function handled on behalf of the city through the Peace River Regional District, and they're the ones that look after and manage all of solid waste. We provide curbside services to collect it all, but it's up to the regional district and all of us participating in that pay for solid waste management. And so it would be something, I sit on the solid waste committee at the regional district, and so I probably will attend as well through the RD in that committee. But it's more a function politically for us to understand waste to energy, recycling, waste issues, and how we can move forward in a more cost-effective manner. And it's not something that would be directly impacting our staff as it relates to the, in my view anyway, the actual technical aspects of solid waste management, because it's not something we deal with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I get it's only $100, but so there's a direct benefit to the city, like you said, you're going to be sitting in on it too.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, and I think Councillor Wilbur's obviously got an interest in it from that perspective where they've been working on that waste audits and recycling audits through Albert. So I'm assuming that's why she was interested.
Okay, thanks for the education.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All those, sorry, are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Item 5 is minutes. So minutes for a regular meeting of council of August 23rd for adoption. Councillor Dober, second. Councillor Kemp. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 5.2, we have the minutes of our special meeting of City Council of September 2nd for adoption. Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Earl. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And 5.3, we have the minutes of our special meeting of City Council of September 13, 2021 for adoption. Councillor Earl, Councillor Kemp. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Any business arising out of the minutes for anyone? Item 7 is correspondence. 7.1, we have an email from Saren and Ryan Verberg from residents of Central Alberta. Councillor Parslow.
I just can't help but comment, in light of recent decisions in Alberta, will this family be relocating out of Alberta somewhere else? Anyway, I move to receive for information.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Dover. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Earl, were you seconding or moving? All right. Thank you. 7.2, we have a letter from Troy Clifford, Provincial President of the Ambulance, Paramedics, and Emergency Dispatchers of BC, who we are and what we do. Councillor Parslow, receive for information. Second, Councillor Dober. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.3. Here's a different one. Letter from Brian Crosby, Regional Manager from the Ministry of Transportation, requesting a letter of support for some federal funding on some of their Pine Pass Bridge projects. Usually it's us looking for a letter of support to them, so Ministry is looking for some support. Councillor Earl?
I will move that we provide the Ministry of Transportation with such a letter.
Thank you. Second? Councillor Kemp? Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.1, we have report number 21127 from the General Manager of Community Services regarding our Dawson Creek Dog Park agreement. This agreement is now up for renewal after it's 2 years. Councillor Earl, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Councillor Kempf, go ahead.
I'd like to remove the recommendation that report number 21-127 from the General Manager of Community Services regarding Dawson Creek Dog Park Agreement be received. Further, that the agreement between the City of Dawson Creek and the Dawson Creek Dog Park Society regarding the location at the Barbary Park Ball Diamond be approved for a 1-year term from October 27th, 2021 to October 26th, 2022, with an option to renew for 1 additional term upon agreement by both parties.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Earl, discussion? Councillor Earl, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Kemp, for your work with this organization. Question with respect to, because I have had some questions from people who have expressed concern, and I don't know if the concern is appropriately directed towards the dog park in particular, or just people who let their dogs off the leash around the park in that area, and they're assuming that that's a reflection of the dog park. But they asked, and based on the recommendation, why a 1-year term? Is it still the intent, I guess, what I'm getting at and what they kind of intimated to me, is it still the intent of the dog park organization to eventually relocate to a permanent location? Because I do see that they have put infrastructure in the ground there. As far as a specific run for smaller dogs and things like that. So some people are starting to think that this is more a permanent location than a temporary one, and I'm not sure where we are with the SPCA and their ability to provide some land, but some insight into that, a reassurance for them, I'm sure would be appreciated.
Shante?
Through your worship, since I've been here for the last four months, what my understanding is they were to look for a location that they would like to go to, and one of the locations that they're looking at would be on H Street once that bridge is put in. So they've requested for another year to remain at the Barbary Park, and so instead of having to come back next year and write another report, I just asked for a year option. So that will give them 2 years to determine where they would like to go. There also is talk that possibly they may wish to keep both dog parks for the size of the community. So at that point, that will give time to determine what is going to happen. And we just need to figure out what it's going to look like on 8th Street. So once that bridge gets completed, to figure out if that is the right location for them or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I really want to give, oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Dover.
Well, thank you. Is there a reason why, like, they're looking for a different site? Like, the one that they're at now seems to be pretty fitting from what I see when I go by, and it's getting a ton of use. Like, is there like a reason from the city why we want them to look somewhere else? Like,
To your worship, one of the things my predecessor maybe knows has a little bit more information, but what I understood from them was that they were asked to look around where some other opportunities would be for them to move to. Parking would be an issue, and then also be at their own site. So they thought the 8th Street would be an opportunity to have a little bit more land and have a better bit of parking. And then if they did, we're not sure if they do keep the second one, then they could walk along the dog park and be at the second one. There was a bit of an incident. That's why they changed the dog park, made it into 2 parts. They did some fencing, and they got fencing, so they have big dog park and a small dog park. So it allows them to have opportunity to maybe have a bit more space.
okay, it just seems well utilized where it is, and that was a park that was never really used before for the intent of it. So that's what I was asking.
Through your worship, one of the things is that once it comes time, that they will come here and they'll have a conversation with you once they determine where they would like to go for sure. So the thing is, they'll come to present to Mayor and Council. But right now, this agreement is just to get us through the year and possibly 2 years until they can for sure determine. And then the Dog Park Society is very happy to come here and present to you where they'd like to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to just, sorry, Councillor Earl, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was just going to provide a bit of context for Councillor Dober, as this was one of the things we dealt with earlier in this council's term. Is initially we were asked for a 2-year term on a park, and I think the intent at that time was the dog park folks involved with that were going to get potentially some space from the SPCA. when they moved into their new site. They, for whatever reason, aren't in a position to provide that, or I'm not sure where they are on that, or it's still got a ways to go. So originally they were in a different park that was in a location that was right next to a school, and it was eventually they requested being moved over to Barbary, which is where they're at now, and I think it is, to Councillor Dover's point, a much better fit than where they were prior. It's more centrally located, but that's why we find ourselves back with the 2-year agreement, I think, is because that's what initially it was intended to be a temporary location, and that may still be the case.
Thank you. Go ahead, Blair.
Your Worship, just a bit. So the SPCA, I know it was the intent to work with the SPCA. Their new building, I believe there was land down there that they were originally thinking. Unfortunately, there seems to be some shifting of the land base down there as far as erosion and so on. So I think that is what has now shifted the ability to look at a dog park in that vicinity. This one that they are in was a motion passed by yourselves to be a temporary facility until a new one was found. There was 3, I believe, options put forward. One of them is below the new bridge in the roundabout part of the park, just on the west side of the new bridge on 8th Street. I know that's one that was presented. There were 2 others. But the Dog Park Society will come and present to council with their choice, at which time yourselves will have to make a decision as to, do they move to a new location? It will be certainly up to yourselves to work with them and make that decision as far as where the permanent dog park will be.
Thank you. So I just want to, having followed along with these guys on their social media and the operations of it, I want to give them a ton of credit. They've got a really engaged group of volunteers. They're looking after the place. They're cleaning it up. They're doing improvements. They put a temporary fence in, although it looks permanent, but it is to allow for better utilization and mix between small and dogs. It's all initiatives that they took on as volunteers and had donations, and I think they've done a really great job of providing the community with a dog park that was always one that was talked about by our residents. And this group of volunteers and the core group of them they look after maintenance, they look after cleaning it, they look after the operation of it, they enforce it, and I just want to give them a credit and thanks on behalf of the community for doing something that normally would be paid and provided by the residents, and it isn't one that's being packed by us at the community. So congratulations to them. You ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Thank you. 8.2, we have report number 21129 from the General Manager of Development Services regarding the Water Conservation Bylaw review that we had asked for earlier this summer as a result of some discussions. Councillor Chevetkov.
I move that report 21-129 from the General Manager of Development Services Water Conservation Bylaw review be received. Further, that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw amendment that would allow lawn watering for even addressed properties on even calendar days and odd addressed properties on odd calendar days in stage 1. Further, that staff develop additional amendments that alter stage 2 and stage 3 requirements accordingly. Further, that staff develop revised triggers as to when each stage is considered.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dover. Discussion? Comments? Council? Thank you guys, for Kevin and staff and folks for putting this together, and I think it's a really innovative way for us to move forward with, and on behalf of our community. We can say 2 things today. Our water supply system is in a much different place than it was 8 years ago or 10 years ago when we were talking about stage 1 to 4 or whenever that happened. And I think, to me, the option of allowing our residents to be a little more frequent which perhaps will allow less volume of water being utilized when you increase frequency. And so I think it's a really good option that's being presented, and it's for 3 months of the year. I think honestly, it's June, July, August is the months of the year when we look to utilize the lawn watering and our landscaping and things. So appreciate it, and I'm fully supportive of the recommendation. Any further comments from council? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. 8.3, we have a memo from our corporate officer regarding our permissive tax exemption list. This follows from our special meeting last Monday. Councillor Parslow? Oh, sorry. Councillor Javetkov?
I don't have a problem if Charlie
No,
wants to.
you're good.
I'll move that a special meeting be scheduled for 9 a.m. on Wednesday, September 29th. Further, that staff be directed to contact the following 4 organizations to invite them to attend a special meeting regarding their applications for the 2022 permissive tax exemption for the identified properties. 1, South Peace Community Resource Society. A, not-for-profit housing, group home for disabled adults, 1311 106th Avenue. B, not-for-profit housing, group home for 5 disabled residents, 1020 95th Avenue. C, not-for-profit seniors, others, Reconnect Youth Programming, 904 103rd Avenue. D, not-for-profit social-related office, 10110 13th Street. 2, Dawson Creek Society for Community Living. A, not-for-profit housing, Canalta residents, group home for 4 disabled residents, 1908 110th Avenue. B, not-for-profit housing, disability apartments, 10717 13th Street. C, not-for-profit social-related opportunity center, classes and social events, 10108 14th Street. D, not-for-profit social-related 1416 102nd Avenue. E, not-for-profit social-related Dawson Creek Society for the Mentally Handicapped Office, 1334 102nd Avenue. 3, BC Society for Prevention of Cruelty for Animals, SPCA, not-for-profit social-related old location, 637 114th Avenue. And 4, Grandview Chapel, not-for-profit public worship properties, vacant lot, 904 94th Avenue.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Parslow? Discussion? Councillor Javetkov?
Yeah, so these, we haven't got any reports from these organizations on these issues here for a number of years, and some of the use of the properties have changed. For example, some of them are listed for sale now, and others are consistent with some previous uses that we've already dealt with here in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So I think it's would be valuable for us to get a kind of a refresher on what these properties are being used for, and consider them for next year's permissive tax exemption.
Thank you for that. Any further discussion, Councillor Parslow?
Yes, I question to staff is about BC housing. Educate me a little bit about BC housing and taxes. Do we get a grant from them in lieu of taxes?
Through your worship, yes, we do receive some funding from them.
I would find it useful to know which properties. For instance, in discussion with both the mayor and I believe the CAO, was that a topic we didn't get to discuss, is like Rotary Village as an example. that is, I know it's managed by Dawson Creek Society for Community Living, but I'm not sure who owns it. Same with Southgate. I don't see that listed here, but it might be because I'm not familiar with the address. But Southgate is a independent living place managed for sure by Dawson Creek Society for Community Living. But I'm just wondering, because I don't think it's listed here, to me, the people who rent there are very similar demographics and situation as people in the Bethel senior housing. And so is that not on the list because BC Housing it owns it? So I'm just saying I have a lot of questions about ownership. And then another question that spawned from this list here, we've got group homes for disabled adults, group home for 5 disabled residents under Spickers. Fine. But I know of other places, but they are for profit, I guess. They're privately owned, right? They by an agency. Now, in some of the discussion last time, we talked about the public-private divide. So here we have a public, not-for-profit group, I guess, permissive tax exemption, and I'm fine with that. But we've got privately owned organizations that don't get it. And I'm left in a state of confusion because I firmly believe, if the private are doing this, I get very nervous about giving advantages to the public side.
Your Worship, first question, both Northview and Southview Housing up by Rotary Manor both pay taxes. So that's why they are not on here. We receive tax payments on both of those. I would be happy, I am not aware unless the corporate officer or our finance CFO is aware of privately held facilities. We're happy to look into that if they are receiving tax exemptions and others aren't and so on. I think continuity is a key part of the discussion that council has been engaged in how we administer the tax exempt bylaw. So I'm happy to have administration. We can look into that for sure.
The crowns of the province are exempt, but they usually give us a grant in lieu. And so would that be where BC Housing may follow into, where we get a grant in lieu because they are a crown and are exempt from paying property tax?
That would be how it flows, but I was just concerned, not sure, does BC Housing own this?
Oh, I see,
not?
Okay, yeah.
But you see, now I'm concerned, why would Northview pay taxes? Can you explain why Northview pays taxes?
Can I? So through your worship, it's through the process of requesting they apply. So we give the option to everybody there every 3 years where we said, this is the opportunity for you to apply for the permissive tax exemption. So we haven't received specific for those properties a request to present to council and say, I would like them to get an exemption. So when we talk about comparing, there are some public organizations, private organizations under the same type of activities. That all depends on who applied. And then when we present to council, then kind of the next step would like to compare to other organizations to figure out if they are paying or not. So that's what's happening now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is not a criticism in any way of city. But I'm a great believer in trying to have a harmonized approach. And what we don't know, or what council doesn't know, or what administration doesn't know, is the status of all these places, and it's up to them to apply. I appreciate you making the point, but I don't want to make sure I wasn't inferring that the problem was city generated. It's outside. But I like equity, I like inclusiveness, and being the Secretary Treasurer of the Dawson Creek Society for Community Living, I am now amazed at why we pay in taxes as for the long-term, not the long-term care, assisted living Northview. I understand for the Southview, and it harmonizes with the decision with council made concerning Bethel. So, thank you.
As a funded organization through Northern Health, through the Ministry of Health, so there we are as residents and the community funding that through our taxation for the provision of those services, and then the residents then are going to subsidize it again through taxation for their property taxation. And I think it's appropriate that if they're funded by the provincial government, they should be paying that fare, and it shouldn't be another subsidy offered by the residential taxpayers for the operation of them.
Yeah.
So, Councillor Dueckhoff?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, the Rotary Village is on this list. It's Section 2, Society for Community Living, subsection B, 10717 13th Street. That's the address of Rotary Village.
Thank you. Further discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Let's take a 5-minute recess, and we're at 10:30, and we'll be back at 10:36. So we'll call ourselves back to order, and we're on to item 8.4. We have report number 21128 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding our 2022 budget assumptions and timeline. Well, I was waiting for somebody to make a recommendation. I'll do it, but I'd prefer not to. Great report, Flavia. Well, we're getting there. Councillor Kempf?
I'd like to remove the recommendation that report number 21-128 from the Chief Financial Officer regarding 2022 budget assumptions and timeline report be received. Further, 1, that the 2022 budget timeline be approved as presented. 2, that the 2022 financial plan be based on the principles and values included in the city's vision, mission, and guiding principle documents and other bylaw and policy documents. And 3, that the methodology used in preparing the 2022 financial plan to be based on an integrated and long-term approach to setting tax rates, fees, and charges, and service provision.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Earl, discussion? Councillor Parslow?
I'd like to talk about the budget timelines. I'm just getting my calendar out here. Okay. So October the 7th meeting, I can't possibly attend that, just so you know. So I would like to request that be held after Thanksgiving Day sometime. Thanksgiving Day is 11th of October. I would like it to be, the meeting to be held for me, and if it is October the 14th instead of the 7th.
Blair?
Your Worship, we will make anything happen that council wants. The dates were proposed as, we pick a date, and on occasion, I'm sure there will be councillors that are unable, as Councillor Parslow has just indicated, but whatever your wish is, we will try and accommodate for you.
So, we'll take that out and do a poll and see whose availability through that first 2 weeks. We got to get it, I think, as early as possible in October to be able to get that first stuff started in November.
Through your worship,
Yeah, Brenda?
that should be an amendment to the motion.
Okay. So Councillor Parsley, you'll propose an
So
amendment?
moved.
Yes, that will seek to have some alternative dates for the first 2 weeks of October.
I like that.
Second by Councillor Earl. Any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor? Approved. And any further discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Bylaws, anything? Mayor's business, 10.1. So I'll give a quick update on the last couple of weeks. Dawson Creek Chamber of Commerce held a chamber mixer a few weeks ago and had the golf course and had a number of local business folks and Councillor Kemp, thank you for attending as well. Really good social, and it was feeling like you're kind of moving back into that, some of those things where you can interact in person. I appreciate that. Had a meeting with Chief Wilson and his council a couple of weeks ago at the West Moberly First Nations, and talked about hockey and talked about economic opportunities and talked about a few things, and really appreciated the opportunity to present and connect with Chief Wilson and his council. It was very engaging and really worthwhile, and offer appreciation for them allowing me to come and present to them. Event Center hosted an event 2 weeks ago, the Wheels and Deals Dunk Tank. We participated in, a few of us, willing participants. And so Councillor Earl and myself, and it was a fun weekend, and I know that the Event Center it was good to see a bunch of folks milling around the Event Center and doing a bunch of things, and fun to be back down there and fun to be in the dunk tank. No, it was horrible. Dunk tanks are horrible. They're cold. We had a brief meeting with Hockey Canada, and we're still moving forward on the planning and preparatory work necessary for the women's national under 18 event being proposed for the end of October, early November, and we continue to be engaged with Hockey Canada in that discussion, and hopefully, fingers crossed, everything moves forward. Obviously, I went down to Calgary right after the long weekend, or on the long weekend of September, and we launched the WestJet flight into Dawson Creek, and I really believe this is really a major service to our community that's now we're starting to see flying in here on a regular basis, and such an important thing for our economy and our quality of life, and everything about a community is built on transportation as one key component, and having that direct flight out is really important. You know, on the flight there was a lady from Ontario on that first flight. She was coming up to a wedding to her nephews. A couple folks, one lady starting work as a dental assistant at a community from Vancouver. She connected through Calgary. It was easier for her to do that. Another lady going to a family event in Tumbler Ridge from Vancouver. She connected in on it. Business people traveling. One guy with the LNG facility just on the edge of town just checked on flights and just started his position. He said, "I can't believe how good it's going to be for us to have this flight for him." And so it's just really, really important, I think, for us to support it in every way we can, and really want to express our appreciation to WestJet, Pacific Coastal, to our staff, and to everybody who helped launch it and execute it in a seamless manner, and away we go. And we got really, really important service. I checked flights the other day for October. Direct flight to Calgary return, it was like $278 in October. It's crazy how reasonable the pricing is right now. So I encourage everybody to give us a chance, book your flights through Dawson Creek. On the Calgary trip, because WestJet said they would be happy to give us a ticket for me to be down and fly on it, I went down 2 days early. And so on Tuesday morning, I met with Tourmaline and had a visit with Tourmaline Oil, a really important company operating in the region. Then I had lunch with a number of the VPs from TC Energy and talked about the planning work that they have underway. That afternoon, I met with Ovintiv. That night went for dinner with the VP of WestJet, and we talked about future plans for Dawson Creek and future expansion of services. And if you have the vice president of route planning for WestJet for dinner, why wouldn't you talk about other opportunities? And so we did. And then Wednesday, I met with the executive team, the president and VPs of North River. Met with ARC Resources, and then met with the president and CEO of Verizon that morning, and then headed to the airport. So it was really a worthwhile first time in about a year and a half that I've been able to get to Calgary and interact personally with our really important industry partners, and really promoted the flight as well in terms of for all of these guys who were so instrumental in helping us build the data for the viability of this flight. So anyway, that was my couple of weeks, and had a really good trip to Calgary. Does anybody have any comments, questions, Brenda?
Through your worship, just moved on a little quickly from the previous item. The vote was not called on the main motion.
Yeah, I did. I called on the amendment, and then I called on the main, and it was unanimous.
My apologies.
Yep.
It was so quick, Brenda. I didn't understand.
These guys, everybody's time's money. Yeah, it was unanimous.
You blinked.
We'll check the. Well, I know she's going to check the video. 10.2, we had a delegation request today from Kathy Peters on the anti-human trafficking resolution that asking us to present to NCLJ UBCM. So if I can have council consider.
I would like to move that we support that.
Resolution moved by Councillor Parslow. We support moving the resolution through to NCLGA onto UBCM. Second, Councillor Kemp. Any discussion? As presented, the resolution. Councillor Javetkov.
Yeah, the comments that were made there about the school districts, I would think this is quite important to, for the school district to deal with it. Obviously, that's a target for the people. Do we refer that to the school district, or should we ask her to refer it? Or
yeah, we certainly. I'm absolutely happy to engage with, give Chad Anderson, the chair of the board, call and say, look, we've had this presentation, give him the material, and advise him it was raised as a concern, and happy to do that on behalf of council. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. We had a delegation request from the Dawson Creek Exhibition Association in regards to their annual report, and it was a request that council now start to consider taking on the costs of those building permit fees, I think, or the building permitting fees and process. And was that the one request they had? So I think I'm suggesting that if we could direct our administration to bring us back a report on the implications of what that would mean to council to consider adding that additional cost and or time onto our staff, what the implications of us doing that would be. And so that then council can understand, one, the financial costs and the capacity of our staff and our organization to be able to take it on, and understand the technical aspects of it. So, Blair?
Your Worship, just for clarification on their request, it would not take more time for city staff or our building department to do this. This is a money ask. It would have to go out. So when they, for instance, contract Good On to put up their building, what it is good on, then goes out and does and gets the, whether it be the electrical, whether it be the plumbing and so on. So that would still have to be done outside of our organization. The difference would be, it would be a grant. We would fund that. So I could probably, the only concern I had is I heard Connie say that within 10 days they're making their decision. We would not be back with this report prior to the next meeting, but if it helps any, we would not, our time would not be consumed to a greater extent. We review what's brought into us through our building department, if that helps at all.
I think it's just the whole issue of us understanding what it is that it's going to be of us now, because we would add it into their lease in terms of additional costs that we're going to add in. And so I think we just need to have from administration, what are the implications of us taking on now the request of permitting for the Exhibition Association? Councillor Javetkov.
So we're already giving them a grant of $125,000 a year for capital, and I suppose part of that could be used for developing a building permit. I'm just, with all the discussion there, and there's horse barns, and they don't have plumbing facilities in them, and to me, there's got to be some interpretation or some actual plan, or I guess a plan, for a few years down the road. What buildings are they building? What's the status of them? Are they public occupancy? Are they just for horses? Do they fit within the 6,000 square feet or not? Or, just to ad hoc say, well, let's give them 70,000 to do engineering work on one building. That's one building. What's the next building? What are we looking at for the next 5 years, for example? They've got a lot of reconstruction to do. And I don't know what the code allows. If you have a building that's 7,000 square feet, can you determine that is strictly for cold storage and not do the engineering for heating and plumbing and electrical and all that stuff? Or what are the options? To me, we have to tie it down a little bit better. And, it almost seems like they need a liaison there, or somebody that looks after sort of the long-term planning and decisions on, what the building uses are, which ones are coming first, and to help with the actual permitting. So it's not something that I think we just need to approve the $70,000. I wouldn't agree with doing that.
It does require, we have no idea how long, what the request will be on an annual basis. And so what we're saying is we would then, in that light, just approve whatever buildings they move forward with. And I think that's the piece I think we need to have a bit more understanding in terms of what it is we're adding into the lease on an annual basis for the additional costs of them providing, for us to provide that permitting function for them. And I agree with you. I think it's part of that planning mechanism has to take place so that we understand what that is. Councillor Dover.
Thank you, Worship. I got a few things around it. I guess, is there any alternatives to building permit? You're building a horse stable that is only used in the summer. Why would you have washrooms in it, for one? Is there a temporary building permit? The other is there's a lot of things that we've put in the city that we haven't got proper permitting, and and facilities around the community. So I don't know, just all, yeah, I get it. It's the city's land, but I know there's other places in town. I'm not going to bring it up right now, but where we've put things in that we haven't got permitting and went through the proper steps because it was too, it would have cost too much and wouldn't have made sense. So I get you can't build a building without following building code, but we do it.
Blair?
Your Worship, just a couple of things, I think. So if people have done put up a building without proper permitting or we're unaware of it, we will at times have to go out, put a stop work permit on or order on different things. If what I'm hearing is the city has done this on different occasions, we need to know that because your liability as a council and yourselves is jeopardized. So we actually administer and abide by the BC Provincial Building Code, of which we have to. Public occupancy is a very big issue when it comes to liability, not just for the individuals. They do a very good job. Our Exhibition Association has done a lot of work for our community over the years. We continue to work with them. There was a comment from council that it seems that 2 weeks before every, this has been ongoing, let me assure you, for more than 6 months, not 2 weeks. And we have a chain of emails, should council like to see them, to back that up. But I think we're in a spot we cannot deviate by law from a provincial building code at all. Should council direct us to do it, we couldn't do it. It would put ourselves in a liable situation, and I wouldn't expect any of our staff to do that, and I wouldn't expect any elected official to do that as well. So Murray put it very good. This is not a Dawson Creek issue per se, that this is our bylaws hindering this. This is a BC provincial building code that we have to administer and adhere to. We're happy to work with them, but we will go through it. As I said, they have asked, and it may be something that you want to consider in a two-step. We have the 100th anniversary coming next year. They're asking for assistance, I believe, on the building, particularly the cow barn building. Right now, is my understanding. We can clarify that, but that would be it. There's also a 4-H building and the office building, which are slated for demolition. I believe they're both down. Last time I went through, I knew one was down. I think both are completely down now. But yeah, by no means can we alter or come up with something. I also will confirm and get back to you that a horse barn, there's two different ones. We're talking the big one, where you would have a riding arena and so on, which is public occupancy. I will confirm and get back to you. The old horse barns, the 7 they're talking that were there were the rows, right? Where just the horses had. I am not sure. That's why I will check. I don't believe they each have to have a washroom in them. That's the thing I will check, but we're more than happy to work with the Exhibition Association. There has been some, I think, frustration that, we push back, say, no, we need to get this information in order to approve a permit. But it was expressed here today. It's not just in the city of Dawson Creek. There's work that has to be done by whoever builds a building to meet it. And is there a greater emphasis when it comes to public occupancy buildings? Most definitely.
And I think I think we need to provide that direction of saying what is it that council is going to be asked to include now in a change to the lease, and what information can administration bring back to us in terms of what we do, in terms of how we're going to budget now for that process going forward in the future, right?
I just said one other thing. Sorry, I just, there's a lot of great organizations in this community that do a lot for our city, and they've supplied a lot of things, and a lot of things get given back to the city, and then we maintain it and take the costs. In this scenario, it's a cost up front, but they are going to look after and maintain it, so there's no additional cost to the city after this, correct?
Correct. The way it works, because it's city land, they actually will look at the capital. They put their capital out. What they've asked is exactly as Connie had said. Look, they're going to be your buildings. This is your land. We run the exhibition. We build a capital asset on your land. It becomes your property and your asset. So yes, and they look after the $125,000 annually that the city gives them is to maintain the grounds, to do the work they need. So Councillor Dober, definitely correct. Once it is built, they look after them. And I'm hoping that we're going to see another 100 years out of that facility, down there. And next year is the 100th. So the big question in the time frame, I'll point, is I think a key concern at this point, if I understood the request. So
we do have one follow-up, though, that does fall to the city, and it's a tangible capital asset. Whatever they do, whatever they build, it becomes a city asset that we have to book as part of our tangible capital asset program to say we're going to look after that then for the future. That's another piece of our liability that we would book for and finance. So, Councillor Parslow?
Yeah, I have quite a few things to comment on here. So the ownership issue, that has come up with other organizations, etc. So if you use taxpayers' money to build something and then you give it to another organization to maintain, there has to be some oversight that due diligence in meeting the routine maintenance is being followed. It can't be just a carte blanche, because we know from past experience what happens with different organizations when you have something and you give them the responsibility for maintaining it. In the lease arrangements with the city and the Kiwanis, the Calvin Cultural Center, they operate it, but we look after the maintenance from the point of view of the fabric of the building. And I would be against giving any building over to a volunteer group to try to maintain it. I think we should, our fiduciary responsibilities to the taxpaying public would say, no. If we give a grant of $125,000, it's for certain operating things. I have real concerns about that. Councillor Javatkov used the word liaison. It strikes me that if there's ever an organization we need to have an elected official serve as a liaison to, it's this organization. I've had the pleasure of being the liaison with the Mile Zero Park. Been lots of building stuff every time, and there's been issues, but every time a permit and proper permitting and building inspection has occurred and must occur. And I'm able to help facilitate some of the dialogue, provide some information, give staff a bit of a heads up, and I think that is something that should be considered. Because I asked the questions about grants. Now I've monitored NDIT ever since I've been on council, and I have a thick binder here, and I cannot find any substantive NDIT requests from the Dawson Creek Exhibition Association during my term. Sure, thanks to Councillor Rogers when he had that portfolio from the mayor, the $5,000 annual event grant, they certainly have applied for that. But there's all sorts of money available if there's a plan and a proper submission for capital. And I believe that the planning and, if you like, design things are sometimes covered by the grant as well. We have the economic diversification grants. We have the lottery grants. We have different organizations across northern British Columbia are applying for these things and getting major supports. I cannot see why the building of a light horse barn could not be funded 70% by NDIT up to $300,000. We got a grant for the Dawson Creek Sportsman's Club, $300,000 for an indoor range. I could list countless things. And this event, the exhibition, is an important part of the being of Dawson Creek. I accept that, but I'm just saying there's a lot of money out there that could be got to support some of these buildings. And I do think they need some help in in doing all that.
So
Thank
I'm gonna interrupt. We have a direct request from them about their permitting process and asking council to approve that and accept that. So I'm looking for a motion to direct our administration in that regard. And my suggestion was that we direct administration to bring back that report to council in terms of the implications of what and how that process would impact us.
I am willing to make the motion in the spirit you just stated.
Councillor Earl, second. Discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I agree we need more information on this. My one concern is obviously, I think they suggested that they were looking for about $70,000 worth of support immediately, but any report, I presume, I mean, essentially what they're asking us to commit to is to covering whatever the engineering costs are, 10 to 20% of capital project costs moving forward. So I don't know what process we can put in place to make sure that's not turning into an open-ended subsidy.
Administration, I guess, from my perspective, we'll direct administration to go back and engage with the Exhibition Association and get that information of what it is specifically the request is, so that council has the information in terms of the implications of what is the request, how is it going to impact the lease, what are the changes we're going to have to be in, where do we get the money if we're talking about budgeting for it, and we're not going to be up. It's not in the 2021 budget, so it'll be part of our budget deliberations for 2022. But administration have to bring us back that information in terms of how and what their request is, and how does that fit into our financial request, as well as operational in terms of the lease agreement.
And just with respect to the lease agreement, I know as part of that there's a $125 fee for or $125,000 fee for service for the operations. But to the best of my knowledge, as part of the lease agreement, there was also some capital components in there already, correct, for some specific projects.
Through your worship, yes, there was. They were laid out, I believe, and council has seen that report based on the demolition of a number of buildings and so on. There, to address Councillor Parslow's concern, there is requirements in the lease that they maintain those buildings. We do that in all of our leases. We actually will do repair and maintenance on occasion. They do a lot of that work down there. All of the work they do has to meet code, has to be done, and it's written right in their lease by qualified tradespeople. You will do what you can, as anybody would on your own, but if you come to an electrical repair, a major plumbing or so on, they have to use that. That is written into their agreement. Both parties have signed it and understand that. I think the question will be is the 5-year capital that we request from each of our lessees as well. We will go to work on that and bring you back some information as is being directed right now. And again, hopefully we will do it as quick as we can, but my understanding is our next meeting is 14 days from today. We will reach out to Connie to see. I heard 10 days in her presentation is when they're making their decision for the 100th anniversary. So that's all I can go by.
I think part of our deliberation and part of the lease agreement would have to include that they're going to give us an annual 5-year and an annual capital projection, and that way council then can anticipate what the budget implications are going to be for that upcoming year on any capital projects they have for permitting, and that would be part of our annual budget process, and a 5-year projection in terms of what they've got planned, so that we have an understanding of that as well. Councillor Javetkov.
Yeah, so, one of the issues is what is critical to hold the 100th-year event next year. I don't know if the cow barn is critical, but those questions have to be discussed. And as far as the maintenance, I mean, they've traditionally used volunteers, and volunteers aren't necessarily tradesmen, and so that's you're changing the whole their perspective of how they operate. They may be able to get volunteers that are tradesmen, but they may not. So the oversight, I think, is broader than that. We've got a contract that we need to be monitoring. We need to be down there knowing what's going on. And I think it takes some liaising to know what's going on down there. You know, we've had incidents where you think something's happening and you go down there and, gee, that happened 3 months ago. And, you know, there's no, it's a whole different paradigm. They've been operating like most of us with, you know, you need something done. Geez, is there somebody around that can do it? Yeah. Are you an electrician? Well, you know, not really, but I know what I'm doing. So you go and get it done. That's historically how a lot of things have been done here. So now to change, you know, it takes some time and some really focus. So I think we need the report from administration, but I think it's got to be fairly in-depth. Like, we need to know the priorities and then the progression over a few years, and how are we going to handle it. If we're, you know, I mean, if we're just subbing it out to an engineer, then, you know, it's going to be costly. So there's a lot goes into it. So I agree with getting the report, getting a report.
Your Worship, it is important to point out, this is not new. We are third year into this lease. All of what you're talking about is contained in the lease, about using certified tradespeople and so on. I think our Exhibition Association does a wonderful job, but I'm going to caution Mayor and Council that if people in the past thought, you know, and all of us are engaged in this type of activity in the sense that, well, I'm not a certified electrician, but I can do that for you. Your liability will climb through the roof. As a city and as individuals, should you support that? So I have a job to do, which is to inform you of that. But so it is contained in the agreement now. I think they do a tremendous amount of work for us down there and get a lot done. There is a number of groups in our community that we're grateful for. But again, the contract today states what is required as far as permitting, following the code, doing it with certified tradespeople, so that you're protected as an elected body and the city is protected and the taxpayers. So that is there now. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, and I don't think I never heard it. And I don't think anybody's suggesting we want them to do anything outside of what's contained in that agreement.
I may have heard something different then, Your Worship. Sorry.
I don't agree. I heard Councillor Javetkov say, he said that's how it's been done in the past, but council hasn't agreed to that.
Council agreed 3 years ago to the lease is all I'm saying.
Yep,
and
no,
we will do
absolutely.
our work. I'm not here to debate. I'm sorry if I was debating with you. I will bring you the information you'd like.
Thank you. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. That's it for delegation requests. 11, CAO report.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick update. The city is presently going through core certification with our safety department. They have been working on this for the past year along with each of our departments. It continues to go on. We are now into the second phase. I believe the interviews will be beginning this week or next. Really just information for you. I think we're in a good position. This has the ability to allow us to actually not only improve safety, which is everybody's job every day, but to move forward and see a cost saving as well. A couple of other quick things I will touch on. There is voting day, very important. I'll throw that out today. Encourage everybody to get out and vote for the federal election. There has been a couple of pieces of correspondence we've received recently unsigned. I encourage people, if they want to write to ourselves to respond, please sign it, give us the information. Very difficult to take an unsigned document and deal with it. I don't think that is certainly not appropriate. And we are nearing the end of our capital roadworks projects. We've seen a number of them done and completed. There are still some under construction. 17th Street on the north end should be completed, I think, within a couple of days, Kevin, with the paving. 15th Street, the completion coming down to Alaska Avenue is nearing completion. We're waiting on some curbs. There are some others. I do encourage people to be somewhat patient. We've had a couple of incidents down on the frontage road in front of McDonald's and A&W Tim Hortons in that area where people brushed by flaggers, couldn't wait for the flaggers and so on. There's to the point of an injury of one of the flaggers. So I know it's important that we all get to where we're going, but let's ensure the safety of the people doing our capital work out there. I would just encourage the public to be as patient as they can. That would be it, Your Worship, under that. And if there's any questions on the core review or anything I've said.
Thank you, Blair. Anything for council? Thank you. Diary, we've got the permissive tax exempt policy review set for February 22. Nothing else we need to. Consent calendar, a number of items. Could I have a motion to receive consent? Councillor Kemp, second. Councillor Dober, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Anybody want to lift anything from the consent calendar? Strategic priorities, Blair, anything?
Nothing new to report, Your Worship.
Thank you. Media, nothing. So we'll have a motion to recess to our closed for agenda items 4.1 and 5.1, dealing with section 90 of the minutes, and agenda items 7.1, 7.2, section 91 are negotiations or related discussions respecting proposed provisions of municipal services. If I get a motion to recess to closed, Councillor Kemp. Second, Councillor Parslow. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we'll take 5 minutes to recess, please.
Okay.